be nice so you have to come running back. I would like to call the meeting order. If we can all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have a roll call, Stacey.
Justin Rock.
Here.
Marianne Miesner. Here. Corrine Dudo. Here. David Glabe.
Here.
Ricky Joe Hickey.
Here.
Molly King.
Here.
Denise Wheeler is absent excused.
Thank you. Agenda approval. Is there anything that needs to be changed?
There's no changes.
Consent agenda. Does anybody need to pull anything or a motion?
I move we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
We are going to move into public comments. So this period of the time, anybody that would like to step to the podium and speak of a non-agenda item, you have a 3-minute time limit, and now is the time.
I'll jump right up here. Cody Bowen, Union County Sheriff's Office, 1109K. I'm here to plead with the council tonight. I know budget season is right in full swing right now, and we are asking for help with our drug task force. As some of you may or may not remember, 4 to 5 years ago, before Measure 110 was in effect, we had a drug task force that consisted of 3 to 4 people, usually a couple people from the county, a couple people from the city, and some help from OSP. When Measure 110 came into effect, the small rural drug task force kind of disbanded, if you will, because we just couldn't take the action. It wasn't effective, if you will. Since Measure 110 has been somewhat reorganized, I'll say, we have a little bit more teeth in being able to go after the suppliers, the dealers, the traffickers. So we restarted our drug task force about a year ago, give or take, and with the hopes that I could get some help from our other departments, from the Grande City Police and Oregon State Police, to fund that. Ideally, it takes about 4 people to really make it work. We can do it. We've been doing it with 1.5. But what I'm asking for is to take into consideration during your budget. The task force primarily functions within the city limits of LaGrande. About 95% of all of our informant work, search warrants, and so on take place within the city of LaGrande. The county, my office has been doing that for the last year with basically 1 full-time drug task force agent with the help of some other folks. So in order to keep this going, to be completely frank with you, I'm out of money, I'm out of staffing. I don't have the ability to keep the drug task force going unless I can get some help from some partnering agencies. We are working with OSP. We've spoken with the governor asking for help from them as well. Where that's at, I'm not really excited about it because I think we're kind of forgot about over here when it comes to that. Speaking with our local OSP, unless they get orders from above to put somebody in, they just don't have the staffing. So I'm here pleading with you with budget cycle. I've spoke with Chief Bell, worked with him quite a bit on asking and trying to help and see where we're at. But I really need some help from the city of LaGrande to attack this drug problem, this trafficking, the selling, fentanyl overdoses, everything are small crimes that take place. People that are victimized, it generally comes around, of course, mental health or drug addiction. And I need some help within the city of LaGrande from you guys as far as staffing goes. For a position for either a certified, somebody that's already in uniform, or a new position, somebody that we can put in there and we can work together. So that's all I have. Thank you, guys.
So with that full position, Sheriff, will that help you with your tasks that you're trying to complete?
Yeah, another position from the city. That partnership, basically, yeah. If we can get 1 person from the city and 1 person from the county, I think I can squeeze another position out of the county so we could have 3 people in there. I'm fairly confident on that. We're looking at opioid funding and the settlement money that's coming in as far as prevention use and what our drug task force can do as far as going into the schools and presentations, that type of stuff. So there might be funding ways, and Robert could probably answer those questions on your end a little bit better, but I think there's funding for it on the prevention end. But yeah, what that would do, it would keep our drug task force going. Without it, honestly, without the help from the city, I can't continue. So LeGrand will no longer have a drug task force, which in the past, when that has happened, the criminal entities know when there's no drug task force. We see an influx of drug trafficking because they just know that they don't have to worry about the confidential informants. They don't have to worry about the buys. They don't have to worry about somebody kicking in your door, if you will. When we are working, when we're active, things tend to quiet down quite a bit, and we make cases, and we're holding people accountable. So yeah. With your help, we can keep that going. Without your help, we will lose the drug task force.
Are you working with Union County Safe Communities?
Do we work with them?
With the coalition?
As far, yeah, I'm a member.
Is that
yeah.
like a part of like the task force, or?
No, not necessarily. The Safe Community
For, like,
Coalition has helped with
education.
the prevention end of things as far as the BEST program in the schools, teaching that, and assisting with purchase of workbooks, T-shirts, graduation supplies, that type of stuff. They've always helped out. So, but as far as the drug task force, especially, no, that hasn't been part of.
It's more law enforcement piece of things.
The Safe Community is about prevention, as you know. As far as the task force stuff, I'm just now looking for additional funding options when I talk about the opioid money, the prevention end of it, of how we can justify that to the government of using that opioid money and showing that task force can be a prevention unit as well. Like I say, when we are working, people know, so it is preventing, and it's holding people accountable as well.
You've been pretty successful with your drug task force, haven't you, Sheriff?
In the years past, we have, yeah. I'll be honest with you, in the last 6 months, it's been a real struggle having one person in there. Having the 4 people, they can be on, these guys can be off, the stuff still goes. The activity, the drug, between fentanyl and methamphetamine, when people are on methamphetamine, they're very busy. When they're on fentanyl, it's 2 or 3 days in between contacts because they're, sleeping or hiding out or somewhere. Also, they don't want to give up their dealer because they don't want to lose that supply. We're seeing a shift a little bit more back towards the methamphetamine. People are worried about dying. They're worried about getting in trouble and having that actual physical pain of the withdrawals. So slowly going back to that, but fentanyl is still a huge problem.
How do you measure success?
Honestly, I would say in case numbers and search warrants. Success to me would be that people know that Union County has a drug task force, and they know that if you bring drugs in our community, you're going to be held accountable. I wouldn't say it in numbers. I know you're a data guy. As far as I can't put a number to it, but I can tell you that the talk on the street and just the accountability factor and the what if of the task force, successful when it's operating and it's functioning fully. Like I say, it's been with one person in there, it's been slow. When we first had it coming back up, we had 3 people working in there, and I think we had 4 or 5 search warrants right away. A search warrant I would measure as success because if we do the buy, we prove that there's information, the judge signs off on it, and we go hold people accountable, shut down that drug house, if you will. As it's tapered off and I've had to pull staff from it, obviously those numbers get smaller.
So as with things like traffic citations, there are financial penalties that kind of come back into the system and help to fund some operations, is my understanding. Is that correct? Is that something that
It's very
happens as
split
well,
out
or
over a
no?
lot of government entities, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, as far as that, I would say, as far as the crime, restitution towards victims that have been victimized by someone that's affected by drug use or addiction, there is no monetary other than holding that person accountable and getting them out of our county, getting them into whether that's treatment or whether that is correctional institution. Benefit and success is getting those people off the street, getting that supplier, and getting that drugs out of possibly our kids' hands.
Question, Robert. Should we pause from this discussion? Because I do want to bring this up during the council
discussion where I can ask questions from the other chief?
I think that.
Would that be appropriate so that, don't go nowhere. We're going to
Okay.
come back to you because I want to continue further. And this portion is for the public comments. But if we wait until our comments, the council, I do want to bring it back up and then we can ask questions from chief and the city manager. So if you don't mind waiting just a short minute.
I can wait.
Thank you, Sheriff. Anybody else would like to speak on a non-agenda item?
My name's Russell Dubois, 1101 H Avenue. My concern today or question, I live up near the college. Sidewalks are going in, which I'm for. This sounds like a good idea. My clarification and question I had today, Kyle Carpenter was a good help to me today and a few others. I made about a dozen phone calls just in the past day. The Safe Routes for Kids agenda, the sidewalks that was brought up, my clarification I would like to know is who brought it up. And I was told there was a group or families that came together. When was it brought up? And then why were I guess, people it was affecting not notified? My wife and I, my daughter, all the other neighbors on H Avenue, no one was notified of this until we saw paint in our yard. And we were just curious as to how it was brought up, when it was brought up, and why weren't we notified?
That's a Kyle question, Mayor.
We'll have Mr. Kyle come up and he can answer these questions for us.
But before you leave, if you would put your name and address on the.
He's already got him on here.
Okay, cool, thanks.
He came up before. So this goes back to, early on when we were discussing sidewalk. I would say it was probably December of ~23 when it first started coming up, where we started talking about sidewalks. Infrastructure mostly centered around Central and moving kids throughout the part of that part of town. The Safe Routes to School movement started years and years ago. We did the most recent study probably in 2014, which is where we designated the different routes through the city, which is like Greenwood, Second, H. Those are spelled out into the plan. I think it was sometime last year there was a coalition formed, I think run mainly through Parks, who made the recommendations for projects, and most of those come straight from the Safe Routes to School plan. So when we got into last year's budget year where we had a little bit of extra Safe Routes to School, or ARPA funds that were designated to go to the sewer over here at the fairgrounds, we decided to move those to sidewalks, and that's where this project originated from. So we put those dollars into effect December, so a few months ago. And with these sidewalk projects, there's not a whole lot of notification that we do. All of the work is being done in the right of way. These are usually requirements of streets, projects, and things like that. So we don't do a whole lot of door knocking. We do when we go out to do the laying out of where these are going. We'll knock on doors and talk to neighbors and stuff like that. So
no written notice, or
no written notice.
would that have been helpful?
I think in some cases it would. So Mr. Dubois has a very interesting case for the situation of where his house is in relation to the project, which makes it much more of a difficulty for him than it would in our standard ones. Setbacks usually make it so that we aren't as intrusive as we are in his case. So that has really brought it.
Or something like that?
I think we could. I think we could.
Yeah, that might be nice.
Yeah, well, in all honesty, we don't do these projects. I mean, it isn't traditionally the city's way to pay for sidewalks. The sidewalks are the burden of the adjacent property owner. So for us to go in to do sidewalks is really irregular for us. So
Because roads, we give notice. People.
to some extent, yeah, we'll do some social media blasts, and we won't. Sometimes we do door hangers to try and keep them from parking on. So yeah, I can see a little bit more public outreach for those. This one's kind of a newer model, I guess I would say, is we don't generally do these projects. I don't know how long we're going to actually do these ones, and usually they're coupled with a street project. So.
But didn't we just get a grant for it again?
We did, up and down Spruce.
Okay.
So.
That's where it's going now, up and down Spruce.
That'll be the next project. This one's separate than that one, but
Okay,
we can definitely do door hangers on Spruce.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you think would have helped?
We'll have
Switch?
this come back.
Yeah, definitely notification. I know mine is a very abstract house. House was built in 1993. I purchased it in 2020. Where the projected sidewalk is going to go would be about 1 foot off of my porch. So about 6.5 feet off of the windows, right off our front yard. And it's my mistake. When I purchased the house, I did not look at the stake markers. I just assumed my front yard, my driveway, and then my side yard was all mine. I found out when the paint was in my yard, my wife told me that I do not own my front yard. I almost own none of it. The house was not set back far enough. So like I said, Kyle and the city, they're in the right. It's their property. I did not know that. But I just was curious as far as notification. I was beyond disappointed in the notification because they're being helpful, but I still think potentially I'm going to lose all my parking spot in my front driveway. I have a shed garage on the side of my house where we can park one of our cars at least, and then one in the carport. But then I was just curious on who brought it up and how it was brought to the council. I talked to Justin the other day at his business. I'm just kind of curious on who brought it up, and was it voted on? Was it, I guess?
It was. We were pretty excited to have sidewalks for the kids to get to school safely. So
No, yeah.
it's been a kind of ongoing request. Like all last year, we've had people at just about every meeting from Safe Routes to School saying, we want sidewalks.
And was it for different streets, or was it just H and C college?
In general.
Multiple streets.
In general,
Okay.
yeah.
I think those were selected because those were some of the priority
Right.
ones. But, you know, and obviously there are trade-offs, you know. People are giving up some of their yard to provide a safe place for children to walk so that they're not walking in the street where vehicular traffic is. So, yeah, it's unfortunately, it's one of those trade-offs where you have some property owners affected adversely in order to achieve a safe route for kids. And I don't know that anyone, went down and looked house to house to house as much as saying these kids are walking in the street on a route that they have to use to get to school. And
Yeah, I guess my only clarification, I guess, for that too, like I said, I'm all for sidewalks. That's awesome. I got a little girl too. I want her to be safe. My concern, which I'm still working with the city, is the location of the sidewalk. I just wanted to know if it has to, for all houses, be road. I know it depends on utilities and everything like that, but does there have to be road and then this section of grass that is not my property that I'm still responsible for, then the sidewalk, and then what is left would be my front yard? That is the, I guess, concern. Is my hope and plea would be to just do road, sidewalk, then whatever's left, yard. And I'm just trying to get a clarification, I guess, on that as well. But
I think that's definitely more of a question for Kyle.
yeah.
You know, that's his expertise.
Yeah, he did help me out a ton on that today. I just, like I said, I just was curious on who brought it up and the no notification at all for any of this. So that was all. But, yeah.
Just so you have some background also, Kyle brought it up a little bit, but there's an adopted safe routes to school plan that the city has through the the Public Works Department. It was done in 2020, so it's fairly recent. So all these sidewalks that were picked were straight out of that plan. So we had a consultant come, do all the outreach, do all the work, and then vet it completely and evaluate the best location. So this wasn't not done without effort and planning, just so you know that background as well. Yeah.
So is it required then, Kyle, to have grass, the road, grass, and the sidewalk?
Yeah, so traditionally, especially in residential areas, we'll leave that planter space in between the back of curb and the sidewalk for a place to roll the snow when we pave. So if we don't have that area, we end up rolling it onto the sidewalk, and then it's either pushed directly back out into the street, or there's no passability on the street, on the sidewalk for pedestrians.
Is there wiggle room on his property for
We're working on it.
maybe a smaller strip,
I
or?
mean, there's some difficulties, and we're gonna do our best. But
Yeah, he's definitely
we're
been
going
helpful.
through iterations right now. I think he said no, so now we're going back to the drawing board to see if we got any more.
Can you make
That'd
it
be
smaller?
nice.
Can you make a narrower sidewalk there?
No,
Well,
EDA says
okay.
no.
Yeah,
That's what.
And I think from Public Works perspective, he came forward, kind, straightforward, said, this is my problem, this is my issue. He hasn't been pushy. We're doing the best we can, but our point in the end is I don't want to build a sidewalk and then go through and build a street and rip out a sidewalk I just built. So
Right.
we're going to try and, put an arrow through a real small hole and put it right where it's going to fit, and know that if we have to pave that road, it's in the right spot. But still give as much as we can. That's the hope.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification. I just wanted notification next time, so. But, no, thank you guys. Yeah.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anybody else who would like to speak about a non-agenda item?
Maybe sort of an agenda item. My name is Leah Spiegel, and I live at 807 Penn. And I'm a member of the Grande Community Landscape and Forestry Commission, so maybe I'm more of a segue. I just wanted to take a minute to pay tribute to Teresa Gustafson, our Tree City Grande educator. Under Teresa's 18 years of leadership, Grande has expanded its urban forest and increased and diversified its tree canopy. So year in and year out, she ensures that we plant more trees than we have to remove. So we're getting a bigger canopy. It increases our summer shading, reducing the heat island effect of Grande. And so the heat island effect is when dark roads and roofs absorb and re-radiate the summer heat into the town at night. Shade trees in parking strips that shade our city streets not only keep our town cooler, but they prolong the life of the asphalt by shading it from the sun. There's been studies on this. And under Teresa's leadership, Grande has partnered with OTEC in a street tree removal and replacement program so that we're getting the right trees under the power lines. She's worked to increase the number of certified arborists working in Grande, so our trees are not as badly pruned as they were 20 years ago. She provides education about trees every year to all the 4th and 5th grade classes in Grande. So some of the posters are here, and I guess they're up at the library now. Teresa will be retiring this year, and I think it's very fitting that this year, under Teresa's leadership, Grande has earned the title of Oregon Tree City of the Year for this last year. And I wanted just to take this opportunity to publicly thank her for her years of hard work and service. Thank you.
Man, we should do the Tree City piece now. Is there anything more that you were going to have, Teresa?
Yeah, no, I just made my spiel. Okay, I'll do my spiel. Now's the time. All right, wow, I'm going to cry. So Mayor Rock and councilors, thanks for having me on the agenda this evening. I do have some news to share about our community forest. Grande has been recognized again as a Tree City USA for 2024. And this program is sponsored by the Arbor Day Foundation and the U.S. Forest Service, and it provides national recognition and support for our local urban forestry programs. And so Grande has been a Tree City USA consecutively for 35 years, since 1990. And we've done that by meeting requirements for this recognition. So to be a Tree City, you have to have an urban forestry program, a budget, and a tree board or commission. We have our Grande Landscape and Forestry Commission, and that's our chair, Steve Clements, our vice chair, Leah Spiegel, also Robert Henderson, Tony Smith, and Jennifer Williams. And they volunteer their time to guide urban forestry policy, and they plant trees. The other thing that you have to be a Tree City is a tree care ordinance. And we do have our ordinance. Our most current ordinance was updated in 2020. It's posted on the website. There's also this companion guide if you want to know more about trees in our city. And then we also have to do a proclamation. And Mayor Rock has done our Grande Arbor Month proclamation for this year. Excuse me. And then the last requirement is that we hold the annual Arbor Day event. And you will see on the dais, every year the city sponsors a poster contest for 4th and 5th graders to encourage them to learn about trees in the urban forest. And all of the posters, like Leah said, they're on display at the public library, so you want to get by and check those out. And then on April 25th, the Parks Department will be hosting a field day for these students, and they'll come and do some tree activities, they'll plant some trees, and then we'll announce the winners of the poster contest. The other thing I wanted to talk about real briefly is the Tree City USA Growth Award, and this is given to cities who complete a required number of activities to advance their urban forestry program. And Grande for 2024 received its 34th consecutive Growth Award, which is more than any other Oregon city, second in the nation. So yay us. And one of our Growth Award activities for 2024 was to apply for grant funding to expand our urban forestry programs. And we successfully applied for 2 grants. The first is through the Oregon Department of Forestry, and that is going to fund our Community Forestry for All project. That's going to be a 3-year project where we'll be planting trees and doing some tree maintenance in underserved neighborhoods. The second grant is through the Oregon Department of Land Conservation and Development. It's a community green infrastructure grant that's going to allow us to expand the Island Avenue Greenway. And so we'll be planting 40 climate resilient trees in the right-of-way along Island Avenue. And then as those trees mature, they're going to be providing shade, cleaning the air, they'll be sequestering carbon, and providing a screen along the roadway there for the folks that live nearby. So lots of good stuff coming. Another exciting announcement, as Leah said, is Grande was chosen as the Oregon Tree City of the Year by the Oregon Department of Forestry. And we're going to have some folks from ODF join us for our Arbor Day event on the 25th to present that award. And then finally, our Spring Community Tree Planting Day will be May 3rd. And the Grow Grande volunteers will be out there working to reach our annual goal of planting 100 trees in the city. So if you'd like to help us grow our community, you can join us at the Parks Department at 9 a.m. on Saturday, May 3rd. And so now, if it's all right with the City Council, I was hoping we could get a picture with our new Tree City USA flag.
On your feet, everybody, come on here.
Yeah, remember to do that. Feet.
How about you, Mary? Not pulling your chair out from underneath.
Do you want us to hold that?
Picture time.
I'll stand on the side of you. Following up.
No, you two, get in there. Get in there.
That,
I'm short.
Oh, nice and balanced. All right, looking, 3, 2, 1. I know how this goes. You gotta do this one. All right. Amazing, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Are there posters out there?
yeah, I know. One right there. Tree? Oh, smart.
All right. Thank you, Teresa. With that, we will move on to public hearings. Looks like we only have one public hearing, the public hearing and the second reading by title only. Proposed ordinance amendment code of ordinance replying and replacing Chapter 34, Article 2, transit room tax. All right, that was long, sorry. The public hearing is still open for the ordinance to be read for the second time by title only and considered for adoption, and the rules of order for the public hearing were read in its entirety during the regular session of March 5th, 2025. With that, can we have the staff report?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. First, I want to apologize for not being here last meeting. Actually, it sounded like a perfect timing. But, we do have a slight change from last time. It was brought to our attention. Maybe adding an exemption for our state and federal government employees. Currently, under our current ordinance, they're required to pay that lodging tax, which is not a normal thing within other cities and counties. Generally, they're exempt from paying that if they're on official duty. So, under section 34-24, number 7, the very last bullet, or item number 7, explains that exemption. So they have to provide ID that they are a federal or state employee and have to be on official duty.
Which section again, what did you say?
34-24.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And with
That was just added in.
correct. Mm-hmm. Yes. With that, that's all I have.
Well, I was just going to ask you, how do you usually verify the number of funds that should be coming in, like from each site?
So currently, we don't audit. That's one thing we have talked about doing, having a third party, like our auditors, go out and audit them. It's a lot of time, staff time. So right now, we're on our system.
Okay.
And they do report to us. So there's our short-term rentals who don't rent every month, but we still require them to do reporting with zero reporting so that we know. But currently at this time, we do not go out and do an audit.
I just kind of wondered how you would keep track of all of that. That would be.
It's not, especially now that we have the short-term rentals. I don't think I've mentioned before, we went from like 24 entities to like 62 now.
Right.
That we're, keeping track of.
And then my other question was, do you have any accounts that habitually are late with their payment, or there was a time when?
There was a time,
Yeah.
yes. We had an entity that I worked with. They're no longer renting out, but no, we are pretty good. Our front desk person is really good. She's also like an investigator. She'll go on Airbnb and VRBO and find ones that haven't reported to us or haven't gone through the land use. So she does an excellent job keeping on top of it.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yeah. So, any other questions?
Thank you, Heather. At this time, we'd like to invite public testimony on this matter. Anybody in favor? Neutral? Opposition? Any more counselor discussion? At this time, I would like to close the hearing and entertain a motion.
And this motion would have to be to amend it?
No.
No, so it's already,
So
okay,
the change
was
to
already in
the
here.
ordinance was a minor one, so there's a procedure to have to read it, but it's
Okay.
relatively minor, so you do not need to have an amended motion.
Okay. I move that the proposed ordinance amending Code of Ordinance repealing and replacing Chapter 34, Article 2, Transit Room Tax in its entirety be read in for the second time by title only and put to a vote and adopted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more counselor discussion?
I just want to once again commend Heather on a complete rewrite, practically. That was a lot of work, and you did a really nice job.
With that, could the city recorder read the proposed ordinance for the second time by title only?
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of LaGrande, Union County, Oregon, repealing and replacing Chapter 34, Article 2, Transient Room Tax of the Code of Ordinances, City of LaGrande, Oregon, and declaring an effective date.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Passed. All right, no unfinished business, and now we're going to move on to new business. Considering approval of resolution amending parking and towing fees and parking permit fees. Staff report, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and councilors. What you have before you here is a consideration to pass a resolution really that we identified just needed to be updated when it was time to request proposals for new contract for towing services. I was reviewing resolutions and found some language that was outdated. This resolution really has 3 sections, the first being related to parking permits, and then there's a small section related to towing, and then the last section is related to parking fines. I think it's important to note that really all we did here was when we just recently went through the codification process for our body of ordinances, there was a lot of changing in where that is. So really it was just an update to ensure that it was accurate, because I think the resolution we're looking to update was last done in 2009. So the language and the numbers and the specifics are now accurate with this proposed resolution. Also, the fees and fines associated with this, like as an example, the parking fines, there's no change. We're not requesting any change to parking fines or assessments with this update. But that's really it. I think it's pretty explanatory in itself, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I just had one is, what's the residential parking zone application fee of $25? I wasn't sure what you meant by that, residential parking zone.
Yeah, I'll take a stab at that. That's the finance department does those, but I think, tell me nod or wink or something if I'm misspeaking, but I believe that that's like the residential parking around like the high school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you remember when we did that
Right.
some years back.
Then there's an annual permit, but there's no charge. Once they get the permit originally, they just have to renew it all the time. Is that it? Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, that's all done at the finance department, so, yeah. Any other questions?
Chief, the language here under the fines, these are minimum fines. Is that typical that we specify a minimum as opposed to a maximum fine?
Are you're in section 3, like with, yeah.
That's what the language is, on a minimum, not on a maximum.
Yeah, it's kind of a legal term, but to my knowledge, we're not charging more than that. So that really is the fine.
Okay. And if that is, then should we just eliminate subject to a fine specified as that? Or is there some benefit to the city of maintaining that phrasing of minimum?
I think that it might be appropriate to leave minimum, Counselor, and here's why. Because some other fees or fines could apply. Let's just suggest that if someone has a number of parking tickets and then they get, we put an immobilization device on the vehicle because they haven't paid those, there could be additional fines that come with that. And so then when they go before the court, this is whatever the particular violation is, it's basically stating that's the minimum fine, but there could be others that apply. But as an example, someone parking on or blocking a sidewalk or curbs, that's going to be $21. It's not going to be more than $21, but additional fees or fines could apply if there's other things.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
When were these figures put into place? The last time we adopted this changing of the fees?
Are you talking about specifically the parking fees?
Well, any of these fees, yeah. The permits and the fees. The parking.
The most recent update was like 2009, I believe. It's been quite some time.
So that's pretty
We don't
low
have an
then.
effective date, though.
Are we average with other cities charging for parking?
I believe so.
Oh.
Yeah.
These seemed really low.
That we haven't
to me.
changed that for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, that might be a good exercise for our parking traffic safety committee to undertake and have a discussion about. I think it's important that we're not attempting to, I just want to clarify that with parking fine, we're not attempting to generate revenue. We're attempting to gain compliance with any parking fees or fines, and the same goes for, when we do enforcement related to traffic enforcement. We know that a monetary fine or fee might, stop someone from engaging in that behavior, and that's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to make money. It's important to make sure that we have that distinction.
But we want to pay at least enough for the person who has to process this for their salary.
And you also want that to be high enough that it's an appropriate deterrent.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
if I know I can park on the sidewalk because it cost me $20, if I want to shop bad enough, I don't know.
Okay. I'll remember that.
If you're obstructing the sidewalk, we'll probably have you towed, and there's a couple of other fees associated with that, Counselor.
Boots only 40.
Tow truck's a lot more.
Yeah, the towing is more than that.
All right, so to get back on track, any more questions on the fees for the chief? Thank you, Chief.
Do we need an effective date on this document?
It's a resolution. It should go in effect right away.
Say it right there.
On the second page, it says
Yeah.
pass and effective
Got it.
at the bottom.
It was at the top previously.
Position of vehicle in parallel parking. If it's not too if it's too far away from the curb, or if it's overstepping the lines.
That's correct. We have an entire city code that regulates our parking, and one of those is that you have to be a certain, so in other words, you can't be out in the lane of travel, so you have to be with, I think it might be 18 inches, right off the top of my head. It's been a while since I've looked at it, but you can't be too far away from the curb.
Okay, because I was just wondering, we don't have all parking spots marked, do we? I mean,
No.
isn't the, so
That's right.
some people might take 2 parking places when they could have scooted up a little. And that's not what you're talking about.
Yeah, there's no regulations that
Okay.
specify that, yeah.
Okay, good. I'll remember that.
All right. If there is no more questions, thank you, Chief. I would like to invite public comments. Is there any public comments on this matter? Council discussion.
Except I think that we should be looking at the fees and seeing if they should be raised or something. A little bit.
Motion.
I
move that the proposed resolution
Go ahead.
Fighting over it.
amending parking permit fees, towing, and fines be read by title only and put to a vote and passed.
I'll second.
We have motion and a second. Any more discussion? Could the city recorder read the proposed resolution by title only?
A resolution of the City Council of the City of LaGrande, Union County, Oregon, establishing maximum parking and towing fees and fees for parking permits, and repealing Resolution Number 4431, Series 2003, and Resolution Number 4563, Series 2009, and all other resolutions or parts of resolutions in conflict herewith.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, on this next one, I am actually going to exclude myself completely from anything to do with it because I am part of one of the towing companies.
This is for considering awarding the contract for general towing services and RV towing services. Staff report would be Gary. Okay.
Yeah, so here what we're asking you to do tonight is to award the contracts to those tow providers who have submitted proposals. The last time we did this, I think it's been about 10 years ago, if I remember right now, right off the top of my head. And the RV towing has become a thing that really generated a lot of renewed interest, and it was time to update this. So we put RFPs out. We had 3 local tow providers respond to that. We have general towing services, which is passenger vehicles, pickup trucks, cars, things like that, and then RV towing, which really encompasses motorhomes, camp trailers, boats, and like the small utility trailers. And we parse that out because not all tow providers have the equipment to tow all of those vehicles, and some don't have the interest in participating in that. So the RFP requested or provided the opportunity for tow providers to submit proposals on either general towing, RV towing, or both. And what we received back was proposals from both Captain Hook's Towing and Rock & Sons Towing on general towing services. And for RV towing services, Fenn's Towing submitted a proposal. And interestingly enough, before we moved to renew these contracts, these same tow providers were providing these contracted services to the city. But what we've done is update some language, and I met with each of these tow providers in order to solicit feedback on what maybe they needed from us, and so it would be an amicable situation for all of us. Towing is not as lucrative for our tow providers as it was, say, 15 or 20 years ago, but it's very critical to our operations, and all of these tow providers, Captain Hooks and Rock and Sons have been partners with the city for a very, very long time, and they're greatly valued. So I believe that these are both reasonable and fair proposals, and also very critical to our operation. So I'm respectfully asking you to approve these contracts.
The Captain Hooks left several items labeled to be discussed. So are we going to require that be filled out in advance of this approval, or what's going on?
Labor at the scene, rollover, special recovery.
Yeah, it's not my intent to do that. I think that, if we became aware that they were charging fees that were unreasonable and unfair, then that would be a breach of the contract that we have developed, that all of these providers have agreed to, and we would just discontinue services with them. I also...
All be consistent?
Between each provider? I don't think so, because most of these fees are directly passed through to the individual. We collect an administrative fee, but each of these providers may have different costs associated with their operations and their staffing, and I think that it's fair, and that's one of the accommodations that I think that it's reasonable for us as a city to provide for these tow providers, is that they need to have some flexibility in an effort to recoup some of their costs. Because here's the concern that I have, is if we don't maintain that flexibility, they have the ability to say, yeah, we're just not interested. And if that were the case, then we're really in a jam. Yeah, so I'm really leaning real heavy on the fair and reasonable part, and I believe that we're there.
I'm just thinking of the poor fella who gets one of the tow companies and it's twice as much as the other one. I haven't compared apples to apples here, but
yeah, I don't think there's any circumstances where the RV towing is more expensive.
Yeah,
a lot of that has to do with the size of the vehicles and the equipment that are necessary in order to do that. But I don't think that there's any anomalies that are that wide.
There's about a 50% difference in some of these fees between them. I guess I would side with Corrine on that. Is it customary, for a government entity like a city, when you contract with someone, usually, when we contract with any other entity, it's that entity and this is the fee. And so a scenario like this, where we've got 3 different parties with different fee schedules set, I would almost rather see the city say, this is the proposed fee schedule, will you accept this contract? And put it right in the ballpark of, you could put it at the highest one if you want, or if they're all reasonable, that makes sense. But what it does is it protects against, Corrine said, that scenario where somebody's like, well, because it was Wednesday, you gave me the highest fee schedule, or, if it was Tuesday, I might have gotten the lowest one. And does that create any sort of a problem for the city if that person comes back and says, well, I feel like I was unfairly treated because my brother Joe, when he had this done, paid this fee, and I had to pay this fee. From a legal perspective, does that put the city in an awkward position? I don't know.
Especially the part where it's the TBD.
Right.
Because you don't know what they're going to charge.
Right. I think I'd be a little uncomfortable making a contract with an entity that's not going to specify what the fee is in advance.
If they're $5 apart or something like that, which a lot of it is just a little bit apart, different, that's not that big of a deal. But when you don't know what they're going to charge, and I'm assuming that these contracts go out like you reverse, you do one time Captain Hook, one time Rock and Sons, don't you?
Right, yeah, so operationally, right, that's exactly what we do. Is it's rotational, but there's more context to it than that. We're not picking Rock and Sons or Captain Hooks like related to general towing services. We literally, if we called one this time, we'll call the next one the next time. But in the weeds, oftentimes what happens is when our dispatch center calls one of those tow providers, they may, for one reason or the other, not be available. Maybe they're already out on a tow. Maybe they don't have a staff person available at that moment in time, so then we have to call the other one. And that's why I'm suggesting to you that it's really important that, and I'm very appreciative that both of these private companies are interested in continuing to do this, because if, what I can tell you is if one or the other said, yeah, we're not interested, then we would really be hampered. Our operations would really be, and it would likely unduly burden that singular provider to a point that they may no longer be interested. And like I said, it's oftentimes on these services that we're asking these providers to do, they're really not making a lot of money because a lot of these vehicles are being towed related to our nuisance code, and oftentimes they're never claimed. So when they're towed or impounded, sometimes people just flat can't prove ownership. They're already junked. That's why a lot of these are vehicles that we're towing that have been parked on our city streets or abandoned on our city streets for longer than 48 hours, sometimes months. And so when we call a tow provider to remove them, they take them to their storage yard, keep them for the 30 days that's required by law, and then if they haven't been claimed, then the tow provider can dispose of them. And the scrap metal costs are not, barely enough to, in most cases, to clear what their costs. And sometimes I think they're losing money on them.
But I still I don't like that TBD though. That's my hang up.
Well, that, and again, I think for the purpose of consistency, I mean, even if you set it at the higher of the fees, at least, I mean, I don't, Robert, you probably can fill in comments here, but does that put the city in a bad position if we have?
I don't think it does.
Right.
I think that one of the guiding pieces here, particularly for the 4 items that are identified, what I would anticipate would happen for Captain Hooks, and I'm just going to use special recovery, we have no idea what exactly that looks like. That could require 2 pieces of apparatus, that could require 4 people, that could require 2. And what I would assume that they would do would be to charge based on their flat rate hourly for their labor, as well as any equipment uses, and they would have to be able to justify that the costs that they are doing are reasonable. A rollover of a pickup truck is very different from a rollover of a pickup truck with a trailer or a VW Bug. And so when you start looking at trying to set a fee for that, I think the way that Captain Hooks has done this is a reasonable approach, which is we don't know what we're likely to encounter. I think Rockinson has, for one of the 3, identified an hourly rate. For the other 3, has set a flat rate, so there's a risk involved there that, it could be one where they put, $250 and it costs them actually $500 to do it, and they kind of have to eat that. I don't think we see a lot of these types of recoveries where we're the ones as the city that is calling out to make this happen, as opposed to the person who just needs to be towed and they call their insurance company and they're towing. I don't think we're exposing ourselves to any significant liability there. I don't know that we've ever had a situation where the amounts have been challenged. If the council is not comfortable, then I think what we would have to do is revisit how we would want to put out a proposal, because we had parameters that were in the request for proposals. Those have been responded to. If we find this as not being acceptable, one thing would be to redo the request for proposal. The other thing would be to, essentially ask the chief to try to negotiate terms for these. I don't think that's necessary given what we are looking at for these 4 TBDs, because I would say that they're going to be reasonable in what they are assessing. So kind of your pleasure on how you want to proceed.
So you said most of these are just cars that are abandoned and so forth.
Right, what I
Or
can tell you,
accidents.
that's, yeah, so when we respond to like a traffic collision, typically that's not going to be a vehicle impound, because so long as there's insurance on the vehicle and things like that, we're not looking to impound that under city code. The arrangement for the tow in that case, much like as if an officer just stops and helps someone that is broke down on the side of the roadway, we're just going to help facilitate a tow, and that's going to be an arrangement directly between that private party and the tow provider. And the city is not involved in it. All we're doing is just helping facilitate the removal of the vehicle. On the impounds, what I can tell you, Counselor, is that the overwhelming majority of the time, the very first line, which is the minimum tow, and Captain Hooks, I think, proposed $120 and $125 for, that's generally the cost that we're looking at. I mean, we don't have, I mean, it happens, but we don't have a lot of rollovers in, La Grande, but those things do happen. And those costs, I think the city manager did a nice job of framing how there's a lot of unknowns related to those in how that recovery has to be facilitated. But yes, the overwhelming majority are related to vehicles that we impound for a code violation, and very frequently it's vehicles that's been abandoned on the roadway.
Okay.
I think I mentioned it earlier, but I think it's important to reiterate that I'll be very frank with you, we're not in a great position to bargain with these providers, because this is not lucrative for them. And I've met with each of them individually, and they care about our community, and they understand what they're doing in terms of helping us in order to keep our community clean and safe. But I'm afraid that if we created a whole lot of difficulties for them, they may just choose not to do it.
Well, I don't see this creating any difficulty, and no one's saying we need to cut them lower. That's not what you're hearing from anyone here. It's just that it's a little bit unique to have multiple contracted rates for the same service that the city's entering into a contract for. I mean, I can't think of any other proposal we've had in the time I've been on the council where we've, it's not like we do a building project, but if the building project happens on Wednesday, we assign it to this other one on Thursday, and they've got different rates. And then, I mean, it's kind of an awkward having different fee schedules among the different entities. And then, I mean, I don't know. I also can't think of a scenario where we've had a proposal that's been a question mark. And I'm not opposed to it as much as I think it's just kind of curious. And I don't know if that, is there some regulation that requires that we have a number to attach to a service, or can we leave it as a question mark? I mean, that's more my question, is it's a little bit unusual in that regard.
Yeah, I think we're fine to do it, because a special recovery, there's no way that we would be able to, in my view, identify what the cost should be.
Right, but you could do an hourly fee, which is what some of the other...
But it also includes what equipment is required, and the type of equipment that each of these companies have are different with different costs. So, yeah, with my limited understanding of the industry, it is a lot different if you're going out there with a pickup truck, dually tow truck, to pull something out of the ditch, as opposed to needing something that comes out with a crane on the back to lift it and put it back on the road. And to say that's going to be $250 because that's a special recovery for the pickup truck with the dualies on the back, that might be just fine. For the other one, you'd be losing money. And so I recognize that this is a little bit different. But I think that when we're finding ourselves, particularly if the city is the one using taxpayers' dollars that is going to be paying these bills, if we think that the fee that's being assessed is unreasonable, I think we would deal with that on a case-by-case basis to protect the public's interest. So that's part of why I'm not concerned about the to be determined, because you're going to get an invoice that talks about we needed 2 trucks versus 1, we needed 4 per people versus 3, this is the hourly rate. It's going to be an itemized bill that shows the costs that go into that to be determined.
So who's paying the fees? I was assuming that it would be the
Person getting a truck towed.
yeah.
Yeah, the city's not paying, you're not getting the invoice, are you?
And I would expect that if the private party is paying, they're going to expect the same thing. And if they don't feel that the amount is or correct, that will be between them and the towing company to dispute that amount.
Okay, so let's say it's a car abandoned on the side of the road. We have them tow it in.
That's going to be the $120 or $125.
Who pays that $125 to the?
I can answer this.
Thank you.
General towing, that the city is not paying for that.
City's not paying for any of it.
No, that's correct.
It's up to,
Yeah, so if Rock and Sons or Captain Hooks comes and tows that vehicle for us, it's not claimed. They do not recoup any money from the service that they've provided on behalf of the city,
okay, that's what I thought.
other than their ability to either sell the car at auction or to scrap the vehicle
And
for.
I'm sure most of the time they're taking a loss on
And what
it.
I can tell you is that it's not enough when they're talking about paying for their equipment and the storage, because it's not free, and then the personnel to go do it, then it's questionable whether or not they're even breaking even. But one of the things that was mentioned to me was they understand that they have to take the good with the bad, and there are times that they will tow a vehicle and those bills will be paid. Here's the thing, all over the state of Oregon, towing is a very challenging thing right now, and so I understand the ask, and it's a little more convoluted, I guess, than a lot of contracts, but I believe that it's a good thing for the city. I think it's fair for both the city, the community, the providers that have participated in these proposals, and I think it's the right thing. And I mean, the last thing I want to do is see our operations be interrupted because we can't do this, and potentially have providers say, you know what, this is just not worth our time or effort.
I know it's not a lucrative business for them by any means.
No.
The towing.
How often do we renew these contracts?
Well, there's nothing that specifies exactly when we need to, but this is the first time that I have done this since I've been the chief of police, and my intent is to do it more frequently.
I wonder if council would be interested in voting on this so it can move forward, but then within the next year or so, having a work session to discuss what we would like to see to make it more equitable for the tow companies, as well as keep it even keeled for city council.
Right, I mean, I guess, again, it just, to me, it's a little awkward to have different schedules in different entities.
Yes.
I would almost prefer that the city say, hey, what works for you, what's a reasonable price? Great, let's make a proposal, and will you agree to offer services? And then it's just clean. You just have all the numbers right there. I don't think it's unreasonable to ask Captain Hooks. I mean, when the other two entities can do it, I don't think it's unreasonable to ask them, because they can say, like you said, Robert, if they have to bring out a big piece of equipment and they know that's a possibility, then they're going to bake that into the equation. That's the same thing I do in my business. I don't always know what I'm looking at. Sometimes it's more costly, sometimes it's not. You bake that in and say this is a fee because we know it's going to kind of average out. And so, I mean, that's true of almost anything when you're dealing with services like this. You have some that are complex, some that are not. You kind of bake it in and say, here's the proposal. And there's lots of ways of doing that. But again, to me, it's not clean. It's not crisp the way that these contracts usually are. Is somebody sitting there in the office saying, oh, well, we did this one last time, so, who's tracking the rotating basis? There's a few awkward things about it where I think in the future, like, I'm okay doing it this time, but I agree with you. I think in the future, let's make it clean.
Yeah.
I mean, don't undercut them. That's not what we're trying to do. Find out what's reasonable for them to, be
I would assume
profitable.
that what they put in here was reasonable for them at the time.
Right.
What they had projected, and it has been working for how many years?
Yeah, I can tell you this is probably as clean as it's ever been.
Oh, good job.
And, yeah, I appreciate that, but, I mean, we will always strive to make improvements, and, you know, we have really great working relationships with these you know, providers, and that's key, you know, because I feel like things have been very tenuous. I mean, I can tell you, we have, over the last couple of years, there's been times that we've had nobody interested in towing RVs. And, I mean, that's just not a real workable situation for the city. And so, to try to work with these providers, and, you know, they have different operating costs too, you know, and so I understand, you know, the cleanness. I mean, that's the way I like to do business, but it's also a matter of trying to work within the circumstances that we have. And I think the guiding thing for me has just been that fair and reasonable. And so, yeah, I'm listening to everything you're saying, and certainly can work to apply that in the future.
And we need them.
So
We
we're
certainly
ready to
do.
go on now.
Yeah.
Anyone have any other questions right now? Okay. Is there anybody in the public who would like to make comments? For it? Against it? Neutral? Any other counselors? Any more questions?
Nope.
Then we'd like to entertain a motion.
I move that the contract for general towing services for the LeGrand Police Department be awarded to Captain Hook's Towing and Rock & Sons Tire and Auto Repair, and the contract for RV towing services be awarded to Fenn's Towing and Repair as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other comments from the council? Okay. All in favor, please all in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Or do we need I didn't hear everybody, so do you need a roll call?
I think everybody said yes.
Pardon?
Everybody said yes?
Okay, thank you. I couldn't hear everything. Thank you.
Could I make a request real quick? I'm hearing a lot of echo, and it's really hard to focus.
We're echoing out here.
Thank you.
You know how hard it is for me to be quiet?
Yeah.
All right.
You did a good job. You were twitching a little bit, though.
I twitch. Come on now. We will move on to our next item. Consider approval of resolution amending, oh wait, sorry.
Nope.
Get back into it. Considering approval city manager profile by GMP Consultants. Staff report, please, Rob.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This was kind of fun for me in a bizarre way. In your packet is the draft recruiting proposal for the next city manager for LeGrand. This was emailed out to the directors and council. We had reviewed it, the initial draft, found a couple typos, sent it back, and then got this version back. Received a couple of responses saying, hey, it looks really good. Did not receive any suggested edits. I think it's in a really good product. Once this is approved, then I'll start advertising almost immediately. So it'll be going out maybe as soon as this weekend. I did have one kind of parallel question, clarifying question about the process. Richard asked me to just kind of reconfirm or confirm. As we get farther down the process, the intent would be to have a meet and greet, and he wasn't sure whether the intent would be to invite the public to that, because he wasn't clear from the conversation with the council, and I told him that I would just kind of check with you. I'm assuming that when you do the candidate meet and greet, you would want that to be open to the public.
So kind of like what they're doing for the fire chief.
Yeah.
I think it would be a good idea.
I think we've always done that.
Yeah, we did when I got hired, so I'll just confirm with him. I think there may have been some confusion about selection of search panels versus the meet and greet. So,
Right, okay.
so I'll clarify that with him. And
like
happy
what
to
I
answer
saw
any
on
questions you have or on the profile itself.
It was well done.
I thought it was very well done.
Can I make a request?
Sure.
LeGrand does not lay in the heart of the fertile Grand Ronde Valley, it lies in the heart of the fertile Grand Ronde Valley. The grammar hawk in me, but
What was that?
maybe we can just
Where was that?
change that.
Yeah,
It's the
where's-
last
what
paragraph
Oh,
on
the
page
very
2.
last page.
Page 2,
Yeah,
Yeah, the last paragraph.
last paragraph.
yeah.
It said
That's the only
lies,
thing I
right?
would change. It should, LeGrand lies in the heart of the Fertile
We
Grand
will
Hotel.
make that change.
Thanks.
Oh. Get your eyes on it.
So it would be as amended when you make the motion, just
Okay.
not to get too far ahead of ourselves.
All right, any more questions for Robert? Any public comments on this matter? Don't see no one raising up, so we'll move on to any more counselor discussion? Motion?
I move that we approve the city manager profile written as amended by GMP Consultants for the recruitment of a new city manager, as presented, or as amended, I should have put it there.
I'll second.
Any more discussion? All in favor? Aye. Passed.
Thank you.
Next one, considering just gonna mess this. Reallocating funds. There we go. I got it right. Thank you. For a new position in Public Works. Staff report, please. I'm pushing it away from me to you now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilors, the action form you have in front of you is asking for approval to reallocate funds from this budget year from the Assistant Public Works Director, which we had budgeted for a half year this year, we have not hired, to a new position, which is our Collection Superintendent. So currently, our sewer department, both collections and treatment, which means everything in the city and also at the treatment plant, is managed under one person. And, you know, during the council retreat, one of the topics that we discussed was succession planning. Well, currently, that one person is actually more rare than NFL punters. There's more NFL punters in the United States than there are people who can replace our sewer superintendent currently, because people don't get dual certified anymore. You either concentrate on the treatment or the collections. So this is kind of a move, as we know that his tenature is going to be ending in the not so distant future, that we want to be prepared and have part of that taken care of so the burden's a little bit lighter when he retires and we need to replace him. So happy to answer any questions you may have.
Did you say it was budgeted for halftime?
So we did budget for half a year of a Public Works director, assistant director. So this is a lower level position. So this is mid-management, one payment tier under the half year.
So you want to
add a
hire
person.
somebody now to do that for the rest of this fiscal year?
Correct.
Okay.
And not hire a assistant director in this budget year whatsoever.
Right.
So the collection superintendent is an existing position, or we're creating a new one?
We are creating a new one.
So you're going to open up for hiring, or we're hiring internally?
We would open up for hiring. We'd open it outside. So I'm a pretty firm believer that we grow great candidates in-house. But one of the things I find is if that you create a position and maybe one or two people inside your organization can fill, you always get people who wonder, did you create for that person, or did you get the best that you possibly could? So we just like to take on the whole process and make sure we're taking outside and internal candidates and weighing them against each other so we can get the best.
Perfect. Any more questions for staff? Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you.
At this time, we will invite public comments. Is there anybody that would like to speak on this matter? Nope. Council discussion. Is there any more discussion?
I like it, that you're planning ahead, Kyle. Thank you.
Motion.
I move that the funds budgeted for the Assistant Director of Public Works in the City of LeGrande's 2024-25 budget be reallocated to fund the hiring of a collection superintendent.
I'll second.
Any more discussion? We have our motion and our second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Nope. Good evening, Commissioner.
Good evening, Mayor and
All you,
Councilors.
sir.
I'm very well. Have some good news. Approximately 8:30 this morning, the Economic Development Small Business and Trade Committee passed House Bill 2527 unanimously with a due pass recommendation to Joint Ways and Means. The 2527 is our Union County Fairgrounds wastewater crisis. I'm not calling it a project anymore. I'm calling it crisis. So that is the furthest as a standalone bill this project has ever got. Then approximately 8:37 this morning, House Bill 2304 had a -1 amendment attached to it. That's Representative Mannix's bill for fairgrounds to uncap the 1% of the lottery funding to go to the fairgrounds across the state. He added the Union County Fairgrounds to that bill as well, and that was also passed with a due pass recommendation to Joint Ways and Means. So we have two bills that are going forward to Ways and Means. So I'm not going to say it's doubling the odds, but it's good advertising. We were on the agenda for Monday, and there was a little screw up there. I was in town, and it didn't pass then. It wasn't even brought up, but it passed today, and I'm super excited for that. We had some great, some nice words spoken by Representative Co-Chair Deal and Representative Lively and Representative Mannix is very, very supportive of our project. It's amazing that the support that's coming for this, and I really do have. I'm very positive that we will receive this money this year. Joint Ways and Means is coming to Grande, April 11th. Hopefully everyone can be there. It's going to be at EOU in the McKenzie Theater. That has an opportunity to speak in front of our legislators. Ways and Means, they pretty much hold the purse or checkbook of our state. A lot of capital construction projects. Even if you sign up and say, I support our fairgrounds crisis, and that's it, I'd appreciate it. We did get 56 people write in testimony. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, also, to the original hearing. A lot of support from everybody in Union County. It was fantastic. And I've been working on this for, I don't know, 6 years now, 7 years. And, I'm going to get the videos of them passing it and hopefully put it on my Facebook page so everyone can see. It was, I don't know, it may have been the most watched bill this morning because it was the most watched bill like on Monday as well. From not just Union County. I've had Jefferson County, Umatilla County, Wallowa County, Marion County. I mean, pretty much every county in this state knows about this, and almost every single legislator. Some don't because they're brand new this year, but pretty much the whole state knows that we are in dire straits here with this crisis. And really, I don't have anything else. I've been working on this I've been back and forth to Salem so much that my brain is just stuck on this. So I don't have any other updates. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff going on. There's a lot of other bills. Do you have any other bills that, the deadline for bills is April 9th. If it doesn't get a hearing by April 9th, then it's dead. As you're aware, we've had 4,000 bills introduced this year. Hopefully it knocks it down to at least 1,000. So now I'll start paying attention to those 1,000 and start trying to, actually remember the numbers as related to their meaning. It's very hard to read 4,000 bills. And hopefully it gets down to 500 bills, but I doubt it. There's going to be a lot of them.
Good work. Well, good work there.
Yes, that's
called perseverance.
Yes, and I hope you get to watch it because Representative Lively, he was actually born in Grande, so I think that's why he's so supportive of this. But he's had some very nice words about, hey, what's going on? These guys have been working on this for years. And then Representative Deal said they've been working this longer than I've even been here.
So I hope the money will be what we need now, the amount.
I'm not saying it's 100%, but things change. And as you're aware that these legislative sessions get pretty heated towards the end with similar topics, and I just don't want to be a bargaining chip and be traded off. We were on the bubble last year, and hopefully we're not even close to the bubble this year.
I hope so.
So fingers crossed, we still won't know until that gavel hits the desk
Right.
in June. So we still have, 3 months? So I don't know if you've noticed I'm losing my hair over this.
I noticed.
Thank you for noticing,
So-
Counselor. Any questions or anything?
Matt, if you're there and you can, support 2365, which will affect our county as well because it's a tax credit for rural medical practitioners, which we desperately need, and it adds other practitioners in there that have historically been excluded, including pharmacists and naturopaths, and removes some requirements that have been made it burdensome for us to attract healthcare providers to our county.
Okay, I will definitely take a look.
So that
Do you know if
just
it's
made it
had a hearing?
Just made it out of committee.
Oh, perfect.
So it's heading to revenue.
All right, so it's alive.
Yeah.
It's alive. Like I said, April 11th, please get signed up. Go on OLIS. You can get signed up through OLIS. I mean, it's rare that they kind of rotate it around. It's really nice that they do this Joint Ways and Means roadshow. So instead of us having to go to Salem or being on Zoom, they actually I think they're in 5 or 6 different locations, and they kind of rotate them every single year. So this year they're going to be in LeGrande, and hopefully everyone could just kind of, it saves us a trip. Last year they're in Ontario, and there was COVID, and before that they were at BMCC in Pendleton, and so this year we're housing them. So it's a huge committee. I don't know, there's like 20 of them. 20 legislators are coming. And so if you have any topics and any bills that are capital construction projects, I know EOU has some, the hospital has some, Elgin Stampede Grounds have some. But if you just get up there and say, hey, how about our fairgrounds? That'd be nice. Just, I think you get 2 or 3 minutes. It'll take 15 seconds. So get signed up. I'd appreciate it. Anything else? All right.
Good job, Bill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Staff comments. Is there any staff that would like to make a comment this evening?
Let's see, April 20, what's the Monday? 26th, somebody? Oh, thank you. Oh, April 28th. Hey, on April 28th, the Riverside Playground will be demolished. So we are underway. The month of May will be the full reconstruction and build out for Riverside Park. All the funding, as you know, has been obtained by a variety of sources, including over $430,000 in grants. So pretty exciting project. I saw your face, David. Some people are sad, but it's progress and it's a safety hazard. Sadly, it's worn out. So excited to facilitate that project. It's the biggest project, over $700,000 in the end. So
I have a question about it.
Yeah, okay.
I had someone ask me about the surface.
fence pickets. Oh,
No, is the surface accessible?
Yeah.
Wheelchair accessible, not
bark chips.
bark.
So interesting answer. That's called engineered wood fiber, and all of our parks are officially accessible. However, some accessibility surfaces are better than others. So the bark is accessible by standard, industry standard. However, this one will have a product called Forever Lawn that will have, it's a combo. They'll be accessible Forever Lawn surfacing and the engineered wood fiber. So it will all be accessible through different walkways and trail pathways, but it won't all be the Forever Lawn product, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, we've got some kiddos
Yep.
that use wheelchairs that.
Yep. It will all be accessible. Every toy they'll be able to get from one to the other, including a merry-go-round that is configured for kiddos to roll up to and sort of flop onto and enjoy. So also our 12-foot tower it has a belt in it instead of stairs, so fully accessible all the way to the top, where they can not jump off, but get off in a variety of ways. There's climbers and slides and other things. Anyway, huge project for our department. It's going to really stress our staff, and I'm gonna, I'm already calling in favors for Kyle to help on some things, and it'll be a full community effort. So right now the committee's out looking for folks that want to volunteer. So the weeks to volunteer are May 12th through the 23rd. If you want to come and turn a wrench, or if you have the ability to do that, please contact me. We'll get you on the list. I know Ricky's been working on it a little bit too. So the 12th through the 23rd is go time. That's when the contractors are in town, and we are building it, so they will come.
We'll be ready.
You started to talk.
May 23rd, last build day,
That's
Friday the 23rd, that's the
So
goal.
that's when can I play on it?
That's it, that's the goal.
Okay.
In and out in 2 weeks.
Stu, you said something about the picket things that,
Yeah. So there's plaques and pickets at the playground. These are the most coveted items that people did 25 years ago-ish. There's plaques that have already been removed, most of them. Some of them weren't there, over time. And then there's fence pickets that have folks, businesses or names or things. Those are all going to be available to take home. We'll do a big social media blast, press release, all that jazz. The handprints are the other one. The handprints? They're not moving. They're staying there. They're outside the footprint of the playground, so there's no reason to take them out because they're so sensitive to people. So we might as well leave them.
so will the pickets then be available? I purchased one for my granddaughter one time.
They'll all be available to pick up at the park during that time.
During that
We'll have
time.
a big pile of them. Come and dig through it and get your picket. After that, we'll haul them to the Parks Department and we'll store them. Who's laughing at me? Store them and then they can pick them up.
Oh, will you store them alphabetically?
Absolutely, yeah, sure. I'll call the library. Maybe they can help me out.
Stu, I have one question real quick. When I was watching the video that you have posted online, I couldn't tell how the playground fit in with our current footprint.
Yeah, it's
So-
it's an illustration, right? So
Yeah.
it's not like superimposed on our foot.
Oh, it wasn't? Okay.
The measurements match.
Okay.
But it's not like, they didn't take our property.
But like
from Google.
the little Tykes area, is that still going to be over in the same area? Okay.
Yep, 2 separate sections, the same as
Okay.
it is now. The little Tykes will be, the only difference is, right now it's 3 to 5, it will be 0 to 2.
Gotcha.
And then
Yeah.
the 3 to 5 will be in with 5 to 12s.
It's pretty exciting. It looks nice. As a
It's-
parent,
it's
I like to know where my kids are.
It's an amazing community project that I've had a ton of help on. Those committee members led by Sharon Langdon and others, movers and shakers. So very
And-
thankful.
And the first day is Parks and Rec only working on it. Is that correct? Is that what I saw?
Yeah, for contractors, right. We're just in-house first, so May 13th, I guess, is the first official volunteer
Okay.
day.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks for your help with that.
Any other staff would like to make a comment at this time? City manager comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. Monthly report's done. I just didn't get it sent this afternoon, so I'll shoot that out to you in the morning. And then also I had emailed out to the city council draft agreement and a letter from the city attorney regarding an increase in fees. My intent would be to have that on your agenda at the May City Council meeting for your consideration. I just didn't want to put it on the agenda without getting it's okay, and then you'll make a decision at that time. That's all I had.
You're very easy. Others, counselor comments. I'm going to wait till the very last because I actually have quite a few items that I need to go over. So any other counselors would like to make a comment at this time?
The only thing I can have to say is I attended the ethics meeting yesterday, the 2.5-hour one. It was very interesting. It really was good. And I know we all have to take it within our term. So be prepared. It's going to be coming back again, I know. But it was worth going to.
EEOU's art students have an opening reception this Friday from 6 to 8 p.m. at Art Center East. It's the junior juried show, the junior students. So that's pretty exciting. There's lots of interesting pieces in there that are worth looking at. If you're able to go, please go.
So my first item, if I have the Chief Bell step back up the podium. We heard from the sheriff about the drug task force. Being the chief of police, I would like to hear from you, sir.
Yeah, so I think the sheriff, framed the situation very well. City of LaGrande Police Department, the last time we were involved in the drug task force or did drug investigations was 2015. We had to remove our person there because we just didn't have enough staffing in order to have a person dedicated to that. We were kind of, when ballot measure 110 passed, it kind of gave us some reprieve because we really couldn't do much enforcement. Small quantities of drugs were not criminal in Oregon. But then last September, with the passage of House Bill 4002, small quantities of drugs are now have been recriminalized. You know, I would very much like to participate. I'd very much like to, you know, do proactive drug enforcement in our community. I just don't have the staff to do it. Since September 1st, I don't want you to think that we're not doing drug enforcement, because we are. Our LaGrande police officers made 24 arrests related to possession of a controlled substance. As a side note, I'll share with you that every single one of those, the person possessed methamphetamine. 3 of the cases, they had fentanyl as well, but methamphetamine is very, very much still a desired drug by our addicted community. But in each of those cases, all but 2, there were other criminal offenses that you know, our officers were investigating and making the arrests for. So everything from domestic violence to DUI, reckless driving, warrant arrests, you name it, trespass. So basically what we're doing is we're enforcing the drug laws, but it's reactive rather than proactive. I think Councilor Glabe asked a good question about how do you measure success with something like this. You know, I mean, we all know in some degree about our nation's drug policy for decades. What I can tell you is that even if we had the staffing to do this, we're not going to solve the drug problem in LaGrande. It's just not going to happen. And I think it's really clear that we all understand that. But I think, you know, it's much like, Counselor, the way we measure success in a lot of other ways in public safety, and that is, you know, proactive enforcement, presence, arrests. You know, we have, with the passage of House Bill 4002, we have initiated a DA deflection program. So when we arrest somebody for possession of a controlled substance, they get into the criminal justice system, but our district attorney has developed a program within her office where if the person meets the specified criteria, then they will be deflected out of the criminal justice program. So it's not just an automatic pathway to a criminal conviction or incarceration. The idea is, can we, through that measure of enforcement, use that as leverage to cause people to choose the path of you know, drug treatment and become you know, contributing members of our community and maybe employable. So I'd very much like to do drug enforcement, but you know, we've talked about this for years, you know, in council retreats, and the challenges about, you know, the financial challenge about adding staff. It's very real. I mean, we're talking about $120,000 a year-ish. Maybe not quite that much. It just, there's some variables. It depends on, you know, what the individual would choose in terms of health care and things like that. But that's an ongoing, you know, that's not just a one-time expense. And trust me, you know, the chief before I, and now myself in this position, if I had the staff or a place in my budget where I could have redirected this, I certainly would have. It's just that our calls for service at the police department are up higher than they've ever been. The complexity that, I know I've shared this with you guys before, the complexity of the calls that our officers are handling are greater than they've ever been. And I can't take a police officer away from, you know, those duties to carve them out to do this. So it really would require me to have an additional person.
My question
I'm
here
happy to answer any questions.
Perfect. I have one for you.
Yeah.
So with exactly what you just said,
Yeah.
if we were to do prevention, we're going to possibly handle some of these calls. They're not going to be created because we are on top of it. We are slowing the drug down because right now, I mean, I don't know if everybody agrees with me. Drugs are the biggest issue we have in our community. It creates homelessness. It creates, you know, crimes. We have break-ins, you know, small break-ins. One of the things earlier discussed was towing. You know, we have towing facilities. They're breaking into their buildings and taking things and breaking, you know, into the different things. And I'm not talking about my business. I'm talking about other businesses. One recently, they broke into this building and went through the vehicles, you know, and stole a whole bunch of stuff out of them. I'm sure these are all drug-related people going through and creating these problems. why wouldn't we not, want to do more to try to help get rid of this issue?
Yeah.
I know it won't fix it all, but
Right.
why would we not try to, invest money into to get rid of the problem we have? Am I wrong?
You're not wrong. I mean, it's just a matter of choices. And I don't think anybody is going to suggest that, these things are easy. I mean, it's a matter of, what are we going to not do in order to do something else? And, I don't know expressly if it was a question, but, I can tell you that drug overdoses in LeGrande, looking from 2020 to ending calendar year 2024, drug overdoses are up 390%. Our mental health related calls for service are up 153%. I include that because what our officers are finding, and when I say this, I think it's fair to tell you that this is not an isolated issue in LeGrande or Union County. I mean, this is addiction. We all know is a very real problem, not just everywhere in Oregon, but nationwide. And so the efforts to try to mitigate this or impact this in a positive way are certainly worthwhile. But I share these things with you because I think it factors. Homelessness-related calls for service in that same period of time are up 342%. A lot of the times, the definition of homeless, you guys, you understand that all the people that fit within that definition, that demographic, are not people that our police officers are regularly contacting. But I will tell you that these people that we are having calls for service related to, more often than not, there's addiction or mental health issues or both, and we oftentimes have no idea which came first. But the fact is, it's there. Like I said earlier, our total calls for service are up 11% this last year, and that equates to over 1,200 calls for service, and that's not with any additional staff. So, but yeah, I mean, we understand that an effort to enforcement, and sometimes it's not just the arrests, it's not just obviously our federal partners, the DEA, our state partners, we all have our lane, if you will. The DEA is dealing with international and some of the heaviest distribution. We have HIDA areas designated in Oregon that deal with a lot of distribution, which is really important, because if we could stem the flow of drugs into our community, that obviously would impact our problem in a positive way. But historically, LeGrande Police Department began doing targeted drug investigations in the late 80s, and we participated in that until 2015. But what I can tell you is we do notice a positive impact when we're dealing with street level stuff, and really what we're talking about is livability in a community, and people notice it, and it's not just the arrests and it's not just those enforcement contacts, but it also creates, when you're doing it within that culture, word spreads, and so there's that paranoia and fear that is that vehicle doing surveillance with what I'm doing. And so, yeah, like to do it, like to participate with our partners. I just don't have the staff to do it right now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess a big picture question would be is if there's more put into drug enforcement, then do we have reduced calls? Would that balance out?
It would be some time before we would be able to
that would
to
take
notice.
time.
Right. Yeah.
But,
yeah. I all I can do, Counselor, is go off of the history of my experience at the police department.
And we like data.
Yeah. What I can tell you is it's not likely going to impact it in such a significant way that we no longer have, the calls for service, the domestic violence calls, and the trespass calls, and those kinds of things. But the intent is, you impact it in a positive enough way that, some of your property crimes and things like that are not as severe. Yeah. And what it does is, our police department right now, as much as I hate to say this, we're doing a lot of reactive policing, which means we're going when somebody calls dispatch, we go to that call, then we go to the next call, which means that we're just reacting to calls for service and what's happening. You know, in American policing, we understood a very, very long time ago that proactive policing is the most effective way, you know, to enhance public safety and livability in our communities. But what we're experiencing here is something very similar to what a lot of other communities around the nation are experiencing. It's just that there's lots more calls for service, and I think it coincides with a lot of other service demand in our social networks.
So with the budget process coming up and what I'm hearing, it sounds like you do need to add a person, correct?
Well, you know, this has been brought up. I mean, I don't have that I have not proposed that in my budget because, you know, we had a council retreat. I think the city manager could speak to this. These are challenge. I mean, to add staff, we've had, I mean, the budget committee, the council, staff, we've all talked about this, you know, to add personnel, it comes at a significant and a heavy cost. And, you know, that's really a decision for you guys to make. My budget does not include that right now. The county has come to us and asking you, so I'm providing this information, but I really thoroughly believe this is your decision to make.
Chief, is there any opportunity to do like a, you know, 0.5 with the county and pair this with them, or is this a burden that we would have to bear exclusively as the city?
Okay, I'm not sure that I entirely understand.
Can you share an officer with the county? If we were to hire a new person, so it's easier on the budget of each entity.
Yeah, I don't think we could share the cost of a person because even, you know, what we've done and the model, the best practices model around the nation for these types of task forces are, you know, if we contribute a police officer, the county contributes personnel, you know, the desire would be the state police would contribute personnel. They still work for those respective agencies. They have to work under those agencies' policies and procedures and things like that. And, you know, as the sheriff noted, you know, there's inherent dangers in policing generally, but, you know, when you're doing surveillance and making contacts with confidential informants and things like that, it really is a minimum of 2 people that need to do that. And I think that's why we, a long time ago, identified that the best way for us to accomplish this is to work together and all of us contribute what we can. I don't know that sharing a position would necessarily accomplish that.
But could you offer a half-time person to help to be on the task force? I know we had people on the task force before, and it seemed to be very successful.
Yeah, that's like I said earlier, we, you know, our police department participated actually for a very long time before the sheriff's office had very many patrol. I mean, if you remember far enough back, Elgin had a police department, Union had a police department. The sheriff's office didn't have as many personnel as they do now. So the state police and LeGrande Police Department partnered for a very long time in the late 80s and 90s. But then it really became a Union County and a City of LeGrande partnership. You know, I don't know. What was the first part of your question, Counselor?
Whether you could assign somebody part-time to that.
Yeah. So existing personnel, I don't have somebody, you know, I have like detectives, but they have a full plate. You know, one of the positions that we have in our investigation section is a grant-funded position. Really, it's contracted. The grant is Violence Against Women Act grant that Shelter from the Storm is a recipient. So that person, I can't reassign them to do drug investigations. It's specific to sexual assault, domestic violence, and stalking. And to have a half-time police officer is just not feasible because of the certification and the training and things like that are involved.
Chief, how does our police force, for the size of our city, compare with other cities? I mean, I'm sure, you know, you say you have a city, you know, one dentist for every however many, you know, citizens. How does that work with police, and where do we sit in that?
Yeah, the FBI, you know, provides some data on that. You've probably heard, I don't know if you have, but it's like a per 1,000 officers. But here's the thing: there has been times in policing where it was hard and fast, kind of black and white. You should have X number of police officers per 1,000. But here's the truth: there is a lot of variables in that. So if somebody were to tell you that we should have 1.9 police officers per 1,000, well, that might be the case for another city, but you have to look at all of the nuances of the community to know exactly, how much policing do you really need? How much policing does a community feel like they need? The goal really is, a community that's safe and people feel like it's safe. It's the perception of livability. But what I can tell you is, cities the size of 10,000 to 25,000 nationwide, but I carve this out kind of regionally because the FBI provides that, but nationwide is 1.4 to 2.5 officers per 1,000 for that population group. The average in our region that the FBI identifies is like 1.9 per 1,000. We're a little bit low. I mean, if you applied that, we should have 24, 25 sworn police officers. We have 19 right now. One of those is a grant-funded position. So we're a little lower in sworn police officers than what maybe the average is. So even if we added a position and funding were no issue, we would still be a little lower than what the average is. But again, I think it's important to remember that those are not hard and fast black and white things, and you need to remember that there's variables involved in terms of, we have a safe community. It doesn't mean that we still, don't have issues. We have social issues just like everybody else.
It seems to be like it's hard to find police officers anyway. When you have an opening, it's hard for you to recruit.
That's right, yeah.
We have that issue too.
Well, you guys, I know, consume the news just like a lot of the rest of us, but law enforcement got a pretty significant black eye a few years back with the George Floyd incident, and then the anti-police movement, the defund the police movement. That has been really, really hard to, when young people, prospective candidates who are, looking to choose a career path, and they hear a lot of that kind of hate, that dissent, and in a lot of the groups, you guys know I'm active with the Oregon Association of Chiefs of Police. We believe that it's going to take a generation probably to outlive some of the harm that has been caused to, the generation that we would be looking to fill the ranks of, our next police officers. So yeah, we have to work really, really hard to get, and I'm not interested in lowering standards, but we're hiring good people. It just takes time.
Thank you, Chief.
Yep.
Thank you.
The only thing I ask is the rest of the council, does the rest of the council want to look into more information to see if we could help with Drug Task Force, or?
I would.
Has anything been proposed to the budget committee? Because they would bring forth the budget, right?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part of your
Has anything been proposed to the budget committee who will bring forth the budget for us to consider on that matter?
Well, process-wise, where we are in the budget right now is I am reviewing the requested budgets from the departments that will then turn into the proposed budget. It's pretty unusual that we find ourselves in a post-retreat pre-budget hearing where we're being asked to make a significant add to the budget. And I think there are a number of possibilities here. I think there are some other elements that need to be considered. So to me, one of the unknowns is the county intending to continue to fund a minimum of one drug task force deputy? Has the sheriff added another one, or does he plan to add a second one to the budget in anticipation of the city of LeGrand adding a position? I think the nuts and bolts of what would a drug task force look like, what umbrella does it fall under, what jurisdiction has responsibility for oversight. You know, we have a model from years ago that kind of talked about the drug task force. So there's a number of parameters that go into what does that really look like in execution, timing for hiring, those things. I think those are all key pieces. If the council reaches consensus to ask that we include in the proposed budget an additional position, I would certainly do that, but with the understanding that that then falls into our normal budget process. That is not an action by the council to approve adding a police officer, because that would circumvent the budget process. I just want to be very clear in that regard. So it's you know, I'm not going to put the commissioner on the spot in terms of what the county position is on those things, or the sheriff in terms of is he planning to request an additional position. But those are all, I think, elements that go into the overall conversation. And I don't think it would be appropriate, I don't think it would necessarily be appropriate to try to answer those outside of the budget committee process in advance of that request. The timing is just not such that I think we could have a meaningful meeting and conversation, and I would view it as almost circumventing the budget process to do that. So if the council wants me to include a position in the proposed budget and we see how it plays out, and then determine if we fill it post-budget in terms of the unknowns that are out there in regards to what the county may or may not do, we could certainly go down that road. Convoluted answer to your short question.
I think I'd like some more like information and data, because it is a big budget ask, and I think we need to look at the big picture of the whole budget and what this position would mean to the budget, and like data on effectiveness. So I think we need to be thoughtful about this and take our time and look at it carefully, and not just make a quick change that may or may not be what we want.
And is it going to be sustainable?
Well,
That's
yeah,
another issue.
it is.
Personnel are recurring costs
Right.
that escalate over time with, you know,
There's
Right.
lots of issues to think about, except
And we know the long-term budget outlook, and
Right.
adding to that is not wise. We need to look at the big budget picture to make sure that that's not going to send us off a cliff.
I think this is a pretty crucial issue, though.
I do
It's
too.
not like just adding a position. This position is, I think, very crucial to the safety of our citizens.
well, I agree.
And
with
that's why I've brought it up, and that's why I've spoke pretty strong against it, because I think it's a huge issue in our community, and the only way to fix issues is you have to try to address them.
it's just as Chief alluded to, you know, what comes at the cost of this. Because
No, there will be a cost of it.
you have to
Always be a cost.
cut something else in order to make this work, and so that's where I concur with Corrine. This needs a little thoughtful discussion, not necessarily on whether it's needed or not, but how does it happen?
Correct.
Right.
That,
you. Got any answers?
is that an answer, or?
Well, Mayor, I will tell you that I don't have clear guidance from the council.
That's right.
And so, you know, it's a little weird because, again, when we're talking about in the retreat format, there is a public process to that, where the council meets in public, has a discussion about priorities, and then has a formal adoption of those priorities, so there's an opportunity for the public to come in and weigh in. It's the timing is really tough. I don't know that there's consensus from the council to have me include the position for consideration in the budget, because that's what I would need to do it. Now, having said that, certainly at the budget committee, sheriff is welcome to come back during the public hearing, and we have had requests before the budget committee, and we understand the intent and the desire, so that would give us an opportunity as a staff to be prepared to add the position if that is what the budget committee wants to do at that time. I think from a process standpoint, that might be the cleanest way to do it. It would definitely be part of the public process. And I think it would be helpful to know whether or not at that time the county is including in their requested and proposed budget staffing related to the drug task force, because I think that's a key piece. Because I agree with the sheriff, having a one-person drug task force is not terribly productive, and I would hate for us to be on our own adding a position and then there are no positions at the sheriff's department. So there's a lot of moving parts just on the front end. So.
Perfect. All right.
Okay.
Well, with that, I will move on. We've got a couple more items, and then we've got to move into urban renewal. My first one, I have a couple of proclamations. The first one, I, Justin Rock, Mayor of LeGrand, Union County, Oregon, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2025 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month in the city. Our other one, Teresa was discussing earlier. I, Justin Rock, Mayor of LeGrand, sorry, I messed that one. Mayor of the City of LeGrand, do hereby proclaim the month of April as Arbor Month in the City of LeGrand, Oregon, and urge all citizens to support the efforts to care for and maintain our city's award-winning urban forestry. And with that, is there any other comments from?
Yes, I have one more. I'm so sorry. The Adopt One block. Robert, were you able to get that link up online yet?
Like the day after we talked?
Oh, I didn't hear back from you, so I wasn't sure.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. So the Adopt One block, I looked into it, and we actually, as a city, don't really need to do anything. It is an organization out of Portland. Our residents can actually just go sign up for it, and then they can request supplies from that organization, and the organization orders them and ships them to you, and then you get to clean up a block that you've adopted. So I adopted 2 blocks already, and I saw that there are 2 other blocks already adopted in LeGrand, and my kids helped me clean up a couple weeks ago around the middle school and our own block, and it was really fun, and it looked a lot better after we were done. So I highly recommend you go do it, and please spread the word, and the link to Adopt One block is now posted on the city's website.
I will send the link in an email tomorrow.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that a lot. Thank you.
All right, any more comments? With that, I'm going to adjourn from the City Council, and we will re-adjourn in. Brent, do you need any time before we start? Okay. Thank you for everybody coming. We'll get going here, and this ones are going to be really quick.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Oh, it's just the consent agenda, right?
Yeah.
There's
Do
nothing
that,
here,
and then we're
right?
going to go into.
Missed that. What's that on?
No, I was waiting to make sure that we had the link up online so I could send people to the website. Yeah, so. Thank
All
you,
right, so
Robert.
everybody's gone, so let's get this going real quick. I'd like to call to order. Roll call, please.
Justin Rock.
Here.
Marianne Miesner. Corinne Dudo. Here. David Glabe.
Here.
Ricky Joe Hickey. Here. Molly King. Denise Wheeler is absent, excused.
Right here real quick. So I read this disclaimer now or when we go in?
When we go in the back.
Okay, so we'll.
Yeah, so just go do everything down to the adjourn part.
Okay, is there any changes to the agenda?
No, there's not.
Consent agenda, do we have a motion or any changes to the minutes? Motion.
I move we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Public comments, is there anybody who would like to make public comments on anything of non-agenda items? Cosini. Public hearings, none. Unfinished business, none. New business, none. District manager comments?
None.
Very well. Agency member comments?
None.
Perfect, there's none. At this time, I would like to adjourn to executive session. The agency will not be reconvening.
Are we going in there or are we just staying in here?
We'll go in there.